Dang it, TikTok.
Live.
All right, we'll give people a few minutes to join here from the school group. You doing good this morning?
Yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah. I'm doing fan-freaking-tastic.
Fantastic.
Did you get settled back in?
Oh yeah. See, I squeaked out a little YouTube video yesterday.
No, I didn't. I did not. I saw I saw some of the Facebook posts though.
Yeah, I squeaked in a 10-minute one.
What was it on?
Basically case studies.
Oh, yeah. I think I did see you post that.
Yeah. Doing some good case studies.
All right. For those of you joining live, we will be kicking off here in 2 minutes here. We like giving people 5 minutes before we get straight into it. Who is joining? Post in the comments below. Where are you joining from? What's your name? What business do you operate? What part of the country do you service? Land clearing live stream. Jacob's, we did an 8-week series past week. Jacob came out last week and we did a live recording. So if you haven't checked that one out, go back. That one was fun. And
yeah, I got some.
We're going to keep going. Say that again.
I got some really good feedback about that one from a couple clients I met with this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Just kind of getting more and more people watching every week. And then, a couple of them were just like, yeah, I didn't really realize how much in-depth stuff y'all are actually talking about. Like, we're just talking about ads.
No, we're going all the way, and we're going to go all the way today, too. Holy smokes. I can't wait to flush this idea out. All right. Who do we have? Who do we have joining? All right. Looks like YouTube just got linked up. We're good.
Beautiful.
We're good. All right. Looks like your channel just got linked up, so we're good to roll here. Dude, I noticed that like in those beginning ones, I think it just like cuts off the first piece because we jumped straight into it after we went live before all the channels connected.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We're getting better.
About that. We are.
All right, let's rock and roll. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Gray. And this week we have Jacob Neffendorf joining us once again for the 9th week in a row for another land clearing live stream. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Normally we say, Jacob, what are people? Yeah, we normally say, Jacob, what are people going to learn? But we didn't even talk about it before. So today's concept that I want to talk about, something I've been thinking about is when you're in that early phase, if you're doing like 100K up to 250K annual revenues. So let's call it like 10 to 25K, 10 to 20, 25K around there. I want to talk about different levers that you can pull at that phase. Because in the beginning, you've got one constraint. And then after you solve that other constraint, you get to another constraint that you have to solve. So in the beginning, the first thing that most people have to do is figure out how to get leads.
Yes. How do people find out that you exist?
How do people find out that you exist, right? So it's like most people who are doing the word of mouth and running around, if you're a solo owner operator, you're still in the machine, you're still trying to do sales, you don't have a schedule in place, you also don't have a predictable lead engine. But if you don't have a predictable lead engine, then you're going to just keep running around like a chicken with your head cut off. And so you and I talked a lot about this last week. What is the lowest hanging fruit right now in this industry to go get a predictable lead engine put together?
Definitely the Facebook ads, social media ads, but definitely Facebook ads.
Facebook ads. So by the end of this, what we could do is we could pull up the report that you guys sent me on that campaign we launched, and we could just show real time. Hey, this is what we launched a couple weeks ago. Here are the real time leads. Here's what it costs per lead. And guys who are watching this, please don't marry yourself to the exact cost. We're just sharing to give you an example. But after you figure out your leads, you are stepping up into kind of going from this starter phase into an operator phase.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got consistent leads, the phone's ringing, you're booking jobs. There is one move that I see people who successfully jump into this phase do differently than the people who stay stuck in that, just the starter phase of like 0 to 20K. And that one move is organization and scheduling. And I see many guys do this. They pick one day to go do estimates, and then they continue to work either 4 or 5 days in the machine. And the guys who rep that out consistently are the guys who can successfully get the business up and off the ground and stable as an owner operator.
For sure.
But then by the end of it, what happens? They run into another
constraint.
So
be business for the rest of your life.
if I got a question the other day, and the question was, are you free or do you feel free? We're in business, right? There are always going to be constraints or problems that we need to solve, no matter what level it is.
Yeah.
So by the end of this, I want to talk about the lever to pull at that phase. But let's stay on the starter phase right now. Once again, how do people go solve that lead constraint? Just very simply put.
People got to know you exist.
So tactically, coach me up. Jacob, I hired you to run my ads.
Well, just so that everyone doesn't think I'm just straight up plugging myself, I do think it's always a great idea, if you're literally just starting, to make sure that all of your friends, family, and people in the contact list of your phone know that you're doing this now, and go out there and get some jobs and reviews and content under your belt from friends and family and people in your community that you already know. I would always do that no matter what. Now, I do truly believe you can launch off the ground a lot faster if, while you're doing that, you also go ahead and let everybody in your circle radius know that you exist through a quick Facebook ad. Because what we've realized over the years is that there are a ton of people that are problem aware of their overgrown property or their unusable areas or their land that maybe doesn't look and feel exactly how they want it to. But there is a huge ton of people who have no clue that this service exists or what to call it or how to describe it. And then you put it in front of them while they're scrolling, they see something that looks like their land with the machine doing something to it that they would like done to theirs, and then boom, they're happy, money in your pocket. It really is a beautiful process.
Sweet. So before they do, you mentioned something early on. If you're a guy in that starter phase right now, we all have social media. We all have Facebook groups. There are local Facebook groups there. Your whole community is on Facebook. You mentioned something there. Friends, family, and everybody else should know about that. What are some specific ways that you recommend people just go get started using the rule of 100?
Yes, that's a good point. I had this in one of the playbooks that I got from Hormozy's playbook. But yeah, 100 reach outs for 100 days. Basically pick your channel, or you could do multi-channel, whether that's texting, whether that's emailing, whether that's messaging on your Facebook or posting on your Facebook. Reach out 100 times a day for 100 days. It will change you. If you don't have a business, you will have a business. That's 10,000 reach outs. I mean, you get 1% of 10,000. What's that? 100? The math is not mathing right. Sorry.
What?
That's 100. Yeah, so you get 1% of 10,000 reach outs. That's 100. So let's say worst case scenario, those 100, that's just people who allow you to come, walk the property, give them an estimate, whatever. So then you close a measly 10% of those. That's 10 jobs. I mean, 10 jobs will get your business started. I can tell you that. I mean, if you're charging right, 2 or 3 thousand bucks a day minimum, 10 jobs is going to be $20,000-$30,000.
Absolutely. So very clearly put, if you're just starting out, go follow that. That rule of 100 video that I believe you and I talked about before, and then we put some frameworks to it, is in the free school group inside the Kickstarter training. So it's school.com/ownerops. If you haven't done that yet, if you're just starting out, go watch that and just rep it out until you're getting jobs. Now, the next piece of this conversation that we're going to talk about is for the guy who already has done that, but jobs are still sort of like word of mouth and they're scattered, right? Specifically, they've got
to on that one.
No, I didn't.
Would you mind if I read it? Because I think I finally got that the way I wanted it to. Like the way it's been in my head, I think I finally got it out the right way.
Yeah.
About this very specific thing. It's going to be quick. Sorry. Hold up.
No, while you find that, I'm going to just map this out. So we're going to talk about if you have inconsistent leads right now at this stage. And then the next stage we're going to talk about is once you've figured it out and you're running Facebook ads and you're getting consistent leads. Take it away.
100%. Okay, so it starts off with the quote, just do good work and word of mouth will grow your business. I hear this 100 times, right? We all have. I see this in every land clearing group. Someone asks about marketing and there's always a guy who says word of mouth is all you need, brother. Here's the thing, I agree halfway. Referral jobs are the best jobs you'll ever get. Do great work, build a reputation, and people will talk about you. The reverse is also true. But think about what word of mouth actually is. People seeing your work, people trusting you, and then people hiring you. Now imagine instead of 10 people driving past your job site, 10,000 people see your work, your professionalism, and your experience. That's all marketing is. It's word of mouth at scale. The difference is you can control it. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with referrals only. You can't dial it up next week. You can't predict when the next job comes, and you can't scale it on demand. I've heard tough stories from guys who build solid businesses on referrals alone. Everything is great, and then one day it drops off because there's no system behind it and no way to fix it. Word of mouth equals amazing, but unpredictable. Marketing equals word of mouth you can actually control. If you're happy staying the same size forever, referrals might carry you. But if you want to grow or even just protect what you've already built, you need a way to get in front of people on purpose, not on accident.
Perfect. It's a perfect post. Now, if you're in that phase, if that's you, you're likely thinking it sounds good. And I've never done this before, so I'm still not 100% confident it will work for me. And I believe, I'll be interested to get your feedback here. I believe that fundamentally comes down to you are faced with something that is unknown at this phase of business. You have two options. You either push through that uncomfortable feeling and go and try something new. Use the feedback and the data that you have available to see what's working for other people and go and take a risk. Or you fall into shiny object syndrome and go and try and start something else. Once this concept solidified in my brain, if I'm doing shiny object syndrome, it's likely because I'm avoiding something that I need to be addressing inside the business right now.
Yes, for sure.
And you and I had a long conversation about this on Friday after the podcast. But people in this phase, you do one of two things. You either go take the risk and you jump in and you do something that you haven't ever done before and you figure out how to run Facebook ads because it has worked for plenty of different people. Or you jump into trying to go start the other business and then make the excuse that there are too many people in my market. There's way too many guys on skid steers and mulchers, and there's not enough demand for this. And the question is, have you tried to fully find the demand?
A lot of people think they have. That's one of the hard parts. Just like a lot of people think because they attempted to call their lead one time that that's all it takes. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things that we kind of crush here is people have to know you exist. They don't know you exist, and it takes a lot more time and effort to get to that point than most people imagine. And it takes a lot more time and effort to get leads across the board to become a close than most people think. And they just think that, and they don't have the information. And if you are, just starting out or a few years in, a lot of times you built the business on mostly referrals and word of mouth. Those jobs are easier to close. Those are people who are already solution aware. Those are people who come to you ready for the next step. When you start marketing, it is different. Those people will still end up paying you lots of money. The return on investment is still great, but you can't just expect. There's going to be people who find your ad and are willing to pay you next week. That is not going to be the majority. So what I see lots of times is guys only focus on those 10% of people who are just ready to just hand them your money, and they lose out on tons of opportunity because they put little to no effort into the other 90% that just need more nurturing, more touch points.
So there's really two important pieces after you make the decision to jump in and you start running ads and you start getting leads. It clicks in people's minds. And I'm sure you see this all the time. Holy crap, it actually works. But that's the first piece. Next, you have another constraint that you need to solve, which is actually turning that lead into sales. And so the first and most important thing, and we always talk about this, is speed to lead. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because we've done 8 weeks of episodes where I think we've hammered it like 3 times in the episode. Call your leads fast. There is a very clear distinction between guys who succeed after they start running ads and guys who don't succeed. And the ones who call the leads fast, right now with this market, we have a bunch of people who are problem aware. They understand, like Jacob said, that they have an overgrowth problem. They understand that cedars have taken over their land. They understand that they have dead trees laying across their forest floor and they need them cleaned up. They just don't understand that there is an efficient solution that exists. And some of you are thinking right now, what do you mean? Like, your algorithm is crafted to show you forestry mulching videos all day, every day, because that's what you like. Most people don't like that. And they don't even know that these things exist. So your job then becomes to put your solution in front of the people who are aware that they have a problem. And then when you call them fast, you don't even give them an opportunity to go search for anybody else.
Yep, exactly. And that's what people like. Speed loves money. And there's going to be these people you have to nurture, but the ones who are ready to just pay you right now, they're going to value time. And so, like, if I call any provider to come to my house for any service or offer, and they say they could be here today, I'm not calling anybody else.
Done.
I'm going to have done 3 minutes of research before I called them to, see if they have reviews and they look like legit business, maybe even less time. So then if I'm calling them, I already know they're like worthy of hiring to some degree. If they tell me they can be here today, I'm not even going to call anybody else. And and I'm the norm in that. That is the norm. 78% of people go with the first person given enough information to make the decision. But
Hey,
yes,
how about this one though? If that person calls you and they have an energetic tone and they are excited about what they do and they sound like they know what they are talking about because they ask you the correct questions that you already know that you're trying to answer personally, it's game over at that point.
yeah.
As opposed to, hello. Yeah, we're
Hey, sheet in the background. What are you doing over there, John? Oh, okay. Hey, hey, hey. Oh, yeah. How are you? Yep. Okay. Yeah. Can you text me that? Okay. That I listen to 100 of these calls a day. That's exactly how a lot of them go.
And look, it's not, it's just reality. Like I've been there, I've done it. I've been the guy in the machine. I've been the guy who's like bootstrapping the business. I've done it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is the sooner you can get either somebody to answer your phone who's trained and call them fast and have a professional inbound lead script, or the sooner you can get into the office and out of the field and be in a calm setting and answer the phone and fully focus on that person who's calling in, your close rate's going to go up. It is, once again, it is a very clear distinction between guys who figure this phase out or guys who flop and probably shut off ads. It comes down to calling the leads fast and being professional. So then that brings me to the next point. It's like the call script is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And really all it needs to consist of is several pre-programmed questions that you ask about every single job. And then you and I have covered this in another video, but we're going through this in Accelerator right now, so it's very top of mind. Giving the price or the estimate range over the phone. And I was doing this all last week with the leads that we were running. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You can immediately find the qualified leads.
Mm-hmm.
If you drop the estimate range and you shut up. You don't waste your time running around like a chicken with your head cut off, spending money on gas cards, paying your salesperson to just drive around the state to a bunch of unqualified leads. So from there, if you're an owner and an operator in that phase of growing the business, you've figured out how to get leads. But once again, we've said this in the intro. I believe there's two types of people here. There are people who consistently like chase their tail in this phase. And then there are people who say, okay, I have to put some sort of schedule to this because it's madness right now. Yeah. Hey, Jacob's driving leads into our business. I've got 2 or 3 or 4 calls a day coming in, depending on budget that you're running. And I still got 4 jobs to do this week. Mm-hmm. What do you see the most successful guys do at this phase?
Definitely blocking out a day for estimates, but also dropping whatever they're doing to answer the phone and call the leads. It is a clear distinction. A clear distinction. Now I know some dudes have like some pretty sweet Bluetooth headset setups for inside the machine. Because every time they call me, all I hear in the background is, yeah.
That was a perfect sound effect. It was spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, you know, you can put things in place to make it better for sure. One point I wanted to jump on top of what you said earlier about pricing over the phone. I think that's so important to help qualify your leads and get to the quick ones fast. It's also going to build trust with people and separate you from most guys. But the one big caveat is you can't just tell people, hey, we're $3,000 a day. Hey, we're $3,000 an hour. You've immediately given the power to them now. And whatever they think in their head with limited knowledge they have from their own experience or talking to someone else, they might immediately think, oh, okay, this is going to cost me 30 grand then, because they think it's going to take 10 days. When in reality, it may be a $6,000 job because it's going to take 2 days. So you kind of quickly went over something that's mega important that a lot of guys are not able to do, is being able to come up with an estimate range, a true estimate range based on a handful of questions that you ask them. That is what's valuable, not telling people your day rate or your hourly rate or your acre rate. That puts them in control. You giving them a range, which you have to have a system to be able to do that on a quick few minute phone call. And if you're in this phase where you're doing both the work, the calls, and the sales, that is going to be something that really sets you apart, makes you more efficient, and will probably make you a lot more money, is being able to do that.
You're exactly right. Exactly right. We just went through this in Accelerator this week on estimating. There are a couple things that you have to understand before being able to kick out the price. And you first have to understand, like, what does it cost you to operate the business? So in the beginning of Accelerator, we take people through pricing. It's like, we got to get pricing right. You have to price profitably. And the only way to do that is to spend the time writing down all of your costs. And so if you haven't done that yet and you're in business, take the time, write down all of your costs. Get clear on your overhead, on your direct costs, on your fuel, on your labor, on your equipment costs, and then get clear on what margin you want to price for. What type of margin do you want to hit at the end of the year? So then we'll set a target. Set a target for the end of the year and then set your 90-day target. And then we back into the equation. After you understand we call this the crew day rate. After you understand your crew day rate, then you have to start making some assumptions based on your production rates. You're one of two guys. You either track everything in the field, like a couple of the people we know, all the way down to the T, and you have data to work with. And so you know your production rates, AKA how many acres can each machine produce per day. Or you have a good guess in your head at this point. And so my recommendation is, if you're not tracking it, figure out a way to start tracking that. And then two, start with an assumption. So my question for you right now is, or not you, Jacob, but for listeners, is how many acres can your main machine produce in one day with one operator? And if you're still a solo owner operator and you're the one in the machine, you should have a really good understanding of this. And then the recommendation that we're giving is, break it down into 3 easy chunks. Is it easy? Is it normal? Is it hard? When you show up to a job, is it easy, normal? Is it hard? Is the brush light? Is it medium, or is it heavy? Is the slope flat? Is it rolling? Is it steep? If you think about things in groups of 3, it just simplifies it. Now, our business, this business model, from an estimating perspective, is arguably one of the more challenging things. And and some guys are listening to this and they're like, no, I got mine dialed. That's great if you do. My statement is, it is a harder business to estimate than a roofing business, or than a wood flooring business, or than a tile business. Why? Because you have very specific unit production rates. You can come in and charge per square foot, and it's pretty widely known in the industries. In our industry, every machine, every job, every operator is a little bit different. And you've talked about this. One of the guys in your Titans group, not only does he track it, he tunes every machine to that operator. And so I guarantee you that guy knows his production rates.
Yes. And they also know that every acre is different. For example, we had a conversation yesterday where a guy way underbid a job and it's really hurting their business. And the guy talking to him was like, trying to get into it. And he was like, it was 6 acres and he charged like 60 grand full clearing. And he was like, that doesn't sound terrible. And it's like, well, the average tree diameter is between 2 and 3 feet. And the average tree height is 100 feet. That's different than 6 acres of some pine trees or 6 acres of some cedars, right? Like, uh, so yeah, that lots of factors there. But I like the distinction you brought up because there's even businesses where there are still variables like, roofing, plumbing, HVAC, whatever, but it's pretty standard. Like the variables don't swing as much. Like with pressure washing, I like to charge by the square foot, but there was still the three factors like how dirty, what's the access, and what are like any extra weird things there? Is the water too far away, stuff like that. But that is going to swing the price like 5%. Versus with land clearing, like 1 acre could be double another acre. That's where I like what you said. Like you have to know the production of your machine and your operator. Uh, and then of course, sloped terrain, tree side.
Well, you joined in our team meeting last week at Bear Claw, and I can't remember if we covered this last week or if it was the week before. So
yeah, the steep job.
We did an annual review of our rating system. And we said, okay, what bids did we miss out on? So we talked about 3 different jobs, and we talked about why. So what were the assumptions that our estimating process took into the equation on the front end? And then how did that actually equate to production? And then simply by having a conversation about it in a room with our leadership team, we're able to say, hey, moving forward, we're just not going to do this, or we're going to triple the price when we run into this scenario.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to several different things. How steep is the project? How dense is the project? And how fast can you move through that type of vegetation?
Yeah. I think a big problem that I've now seen across the board, and I know I did this in my business, guys are usually pretty darn accurate once you get some experience under your belt on the like 2 to 3 day stuff. And this is something that I just kind of drew out of my own experience, but I saw Alex post from Brushworks about his jobs like over the year and the smaller jobs he's more profitable on. But this is an assumption on his end, by the way, but I know based on my experience that this is more common when you get to these bigger jobs where it's harder to understand the scope. Either you don't quite understand how long it's going to take and how much it's going to take and what unforeseeable things can show up, or you're like, oh, this is a big job. Let me give him a good deal. And then you just kill your margins on a big job when you should not have. You'd have been better off just not doing it. And in my businesses, like I would always see this like a quick minimum job where it's like pressure washing is the example. I would charge, $300 to do a driveway. It takes 20 minutes, right? Crazy good margins. But then we go do a gas station and we drop our per square foot like in half. So we make sure we land this gas station job. And it takes 8 hours all night to do it. And we made less margin on that than we did on this 20-minute driveway job. It's like, why would you do that to yourself? And this is like asking myself, like I've done this a lot, but I've also seen guys do this a lot. Like, oh, it's going to be 100 acres. Like, yeah, I'll help you out on the price here. And it's like, you really need to know your numbers before you do that, because it's not worth being on a job for months to make razor thin margins. You might as well have done a bunch of small jobs. And so, I've seen that where guys are like, oh, I just did a $4,000 job. It took me 1 day. It's like, that's because of how you priced it. Price the bigger ones that way. And if you're doing it on accident, then you really need to start looking at those numbers and seeing how you price to build in some margin.
You mentioned something earlier, size of trees. What we uncovered in our annual meeting, looking back at a couple jobs that we felt like we could have done better on, it all came down to size of trees, and it came down to how many trees were stacked up on top of each other, because we realized that coming in to clean up a forest floor, because we deal with a ton of deadfall out here, dead trees laying across the forest floor. It's all across the West. Pine beetle came through, killed a bunch of trees in early 2000s, and then all those trees have blown over since. And then if the person has not cleaned up their forest, you're just dealing with what we call jackstraw. And jackstraw is defined as lots of dead trees stacked on top of each other, and they're all tangled. When we did the job at Rocky Mountain National Park, it was 20 acres of jackstraw.
Mm.
And whenever you go in there looking at a job, what we realized is that trees that are laying on the ground, either spread out or not touching each other, or trees that are just like barely overlapped, so AKA 2 trees are touching, is completely different from a time perspective than cleaning up 4 trees that are touching each other. And I'll state this, it's not 4 times as long. It's exponential. Why? Because you have to bring in ground sawyers, you have to cut them up into different size lengths, you have to get the log grappling, you have to twist things, you have to navigate them out of the standing trees that are already there. And so wherever you're at in your part of the country, I want you to get clear, and my challenge for you is to get crystal clear on those variables that drive your time exponentially up. Because when you come in and you look at a job of like normal, flat, maybe some slight rolling hills with medium density, it's easy to look at it from a general landscape. But if there are several variables on that plot that are different, it's going to drive your production time through the roof.
Yeah.
So my question for listeners right now, start with this. What's an average job for you? Pick one machine, pick yourself or one operator, and answer this question. How many acres can I clear or mulch in one day with that one machine? And start there, because you have to have some sort of baseline that you're operating off of. And then from there, define easy, define average, and define hard. And then you can do the same thing to apply the logic to the density. Is it light? Is it medium? Is it heavy? Is the slope flat? Is it rolling? Is it steep? How about rocks? Are there no rocks, some rocks, or are you dealing with like rock ledges that you're going to have to navigate on? All of these variables play in depending on the part of the country that you're in.
Big time.
So let's assume you figured out speed to lead. You're calling your leads fast and you're doing estimates 1 day per week, and you're working 4 or 5 days in the field. This stage, from what I've seen, is guys who are doing a couple $100,000 a year in revenue, 20 to 30K a month. The one lever that operator needs to pull is figuring out how to replace themselves in the machine, so that then they can go increase the time that they are able to go sell more jobs. And once again, we'll come back to a conversation we talked about last week, shiny object syndrome. I see so many people jump into what would happen if I bought another machine and added another service at this phase.
Yep, I'm gonna go get a dump truck. I'm gonna get a dump trailer. The guy's running the machine now. I do a couple estimates, and now I'm just thinking about all these other things I could do. But then you didn't spend any time training the guy. You didn't put any systems in place. And now every other day, you got to go over there and put out some fire, fix something, the machine breaks, something's wrong with the customer, whatever. And it's like, you'd be better off just in the machine. And then guys say, oh, I can't find good help. I can't grow. I'd be better off just doing it myself. I've seen that 100 times. So, and I've also been there. So I'm not saying that's the norm, but I think people have a really cool opportunity with owner ops to put these systems in places that most people learn the hard way, that you can put before and grow with these right things in place and avoid a lot of heartache and cyclical failure.
So you've started multiple businesses. And I'll share one example here. I made this mistake early on. And it was because I was simply inexperienced as an entrepreneur, and I just had not figured out what I needed to focus on. So it really just came down to focus. But I identified it last year. But in the beginning, when we started, you think, oh, we can do all these services. Like there's opportunity over here, there's opportunity over there. And like we can do that. And most people in that phase, myself included, fall into that trap. But what I've realized as we've grown is there is actually a bigger market for the one most profitable service that we offer. So why overcomplicate everything? Because here's what was happening. In the beginning, I was marketing driveway leads. I was driveway grading. I was doing the fire mitigation, still trying to figure out how to market that, right? Do we go tree service? Do we go land clearing? What's the resonating messaging here? But I was trying to run driveway ads. Then I'm like, well, shoot, people are asking us to dig foundations. Let's do that too. We got talented operators. And guys, I'm sharing this with you because like this is an actual phase that I went through in my business. And it was literally the first 2 years. And we were incredibly distracted. Now, my question to myself would have been, like looking back on this, what did you set out to do in the beginning? And the mission was to clean up the forest to reduce wildfire risk. That was a very simple mission I started Bear Claw off of. But I got distracted. I saw shiny objects. I said yes to all the services that people were asking me to do. And so, guys, when we talk about this stuff and we're sharing these things on the podcast, I genuinely don't want you to make the same mistake that I made. And did it work out all right for us? Yes, we're fine. And we would have grown much faster had I had a sole focus on growing fire mitigation right out the gate. And Jacob, my question for you is, in all the businesses you've started, I mean, you addressed it as kind of as a meta principle, right? Like you had multiple businesses going on at once and you identified that you had shiny object syndrome.
Big time. Yeah. Yeah. And you brought up a really good point. And you didn't just say yes to all the services. You started even marketing to all the services. So I think like there is a level of, hey, you're already at the property and your machine is capable of this. Could you increase your average order value by doing a little extra and charging a little extra for a job that's within your scope and you're already there? Yes. That's different than trying to have a whole nother service offering in your business. But yeah, and we have a handful of guys in our ecosystem right now. And I experienced it, and I've known many entrepreneurs that have experienced it that have multiple businesses, or they're still working a full-time job and running a business. And I have a very unique perspective on that. And they call me and they're like, talking about these complaints or the constraints that they're having. And I'm like, dude, you realize this would be easily solved by you getting 40 hours of your week back to work on the business. Like it sounds so simple, but it's very hard to convince people of that. And it was hard to convince myself. I didn't convince myself, someone else did, to really hone in and focus on something. And sometimes it's hard to choose. Sometimes it's not super obvious, which is like the absolute best one. But what is obvious is that none of them will ever crush if you don't put your sole focus on it. And I went through that hardship for a lot of years, and I watch a lot of guys going through it right now. And their business is like this, it's like when they're paying attention to it, it's good. And then when it's not, and it's all over the place. And you just have to you got to go all in if it's going to be actually worth it and do really, really well.
Specifically, whenever you made the decision to go all in on Rise, can you talk about the other obligations that you had in your life and also the other businesses you had going? Are you comfortable sharing that and your thought process between how you thought through which decision to make and which one to go all in on?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was at this pivotal point, I was working full time for the fire department. So I was working 48 hours on, 96 hours off. So I worked an average of 96 hours a week, but I never liked to do the bare minimum at anything, right? So I was also field training paramedic. I was also on the rescue team. I was also on the protocol committee. I also was like in hiring interviews and all this stuff, right? Lots of extracurricular activities. So it was well over 100 hours a week, not to mention the the time I was off during the week. I was very tired from these other things, right? I also ran a pressure washing business, a trash can cleaning business, and an RV rental business. Uh, that all had employees, all needed marketing, all needed sales. Basically, was the sole salesperson for all those things. While Rise was also already making $2 million a year. And the only reason I say that is so you can understand like the level of attention that took, right? So that's horrible. I don't recommend anyone ever do that level of thing. Uh,
especially
then,
with kids and a family.
yeah, yeah, I should have mentioned that. Yes, married, two beautiful kids, with a bazillion animals out here, and lots of, not to mention, like I'm on the board at church, which also has board meetings and regular meetings, and serving a couple times a week. It's just too many commitments, right? Which means I was not fully committed to anything. And I was trying very hard to be. My heart was trying to be, but it's not physically possible. So what I ended up really coming down to, even though like my career was what I thought I would do for the rest of my life, and I really, really loved the job, was really invested in it. And it seemed like the safer option of like, oh yeah, I just have this career. I know I could work here forever. I'll have a good retirement, whatever. But I knew, to be frank, I knew I could make more money with Rise and spend more time at home, like spend more time with my family. So that was when it became like kind of a clear choice. Like, why would I not? Like, if I was outside of me, outside looking in, why the heck would I not choose more time with family and more money? And yeah, so that's what I chose. I
So
sold other businesses.
yeah, go ahead.
And I sold the other businesses.
So you drew a clear line in the sand where you said, we're no longer doing this and we're going all in on this. My question for you, because I know we have listeners right now who are in the early phases of business and you're experiencing uncertainty. Why do I know this? Because I've gone through all of it and still go through all of it. I don't think it ever ends. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. I don't know that. But what I can tell you is it has not ended for me. It seems like the uncertainty comes in waves. And it also seems like the more we stay in the game and the more we keep blocking and tackling and running the playbook, the more confident we get to ride that uncertainty out. But in the early years, it's incredibly uncertain because you're starting out, you've invested money in this equipment. You don't know the exact right move. You have a gut feeling. My question for you, Jacob, and this is just a conversation. Why do you think it's so much easier and so much more natural to go say yes to either the new piece of equipment with another crew too early, or say yes to, I should do another business because that feels easier right now? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's simple. It's a feedback loop. So you bought machine, you got jobs, you made money. So then you think, oh, I did that before. Let me do that again. Same thing with a business. Like, oh, I started this business. I had this uninformed optimism and got into it. And then you get informed pessimism, which is where you're at right before you jump into shiny object syndrome. You're like, okay, well, yeah, I did this, made some money, but there's some negative things to this business. It's hard to find good help. And the machine breaks down all the time. So you know what? Actually, looks like the dump truck, be a lot simpler. Just hauling stuff around for guys. I see these everywhere. There's got to be lots of money in that, dude. Hot shotting. If there was a phase where I think like every dude with a Cummins or a Power Stroke was like, I'm gonna become a hot shotter. So, but And it's like every time you drive, you see him and you're like, man, this guy's just making money. And so, you have this feedback loop of, well, hey, I started a business. I know how to do that. And then, again, at a certain point, it's like you get really good at figuring out how to make 100 grand. And a lot of guys will do that over and over. Then that next step is like you get good at making a 500,000. And then you get good at making 1 million. And you know, to be frank, I think you and I are kind of right there. Like we could go make a 7-figure business with pretty much any industry, with the experience we have so far. But if you keep doing that, it's because you're avoiding the skill issue of growing past that. And that's where a lot of guys jump ship. They hit a roadblock where it's either too hard to solve or they don't know how to solve it. And then they're like, okay, let me go do this because I know I can do that. And you've done it before. So it's like that comfort clarity space where you did something, got reward. Now you're not getting it anymore. So I'm gonna go try to do that again.
It's avoiding the discomfort.
For sure.
So whenever we're talking about, okay, whenever you're in starter phase, and I'm seeing it a lot, like, I don't know, same with AI eating jobs and AI eating more white collar jobs, more and more guys see something online about a forestry mulching machine and have the idea, this would be the coolest business in the world. I would love operating machines. Some guys go out and buy the machine like before they even have a plan together. And we're seeing it over and over again. So the first constraint that most people run into is like, oh crap, how do I actually get jobs? And so there are some guys who just take your advice and go film the Facebook ad and run the Facebook ad and start getting jobs. Now, do you need a Google business profile? Yes. Do you need a website? Yes. Like set that up. It's a long-term strategy, right? But we're talking about like, how can you get out the gate and move? First, it's reach out to 100 people and do that repeatedly to get your jobs without spending any money on ads. Second, it's like, okay, how do I do this in a more scalable way? It's run ads. Pretty straightforward right now. Then you start getting the leads and your phone starts ringing and you start booking jobs, and then you're playing chicken with your head cut off. You're going back and forth between the operator. You're trying to load equipment up. You're trying to answer the job, like ramp. You're slamming the ramp on the back while there's a lead coming in. I know this because I've done it. I've done it like to the T, right? And I see so many guys going through this, right? The next phase is simply just putting a scheduling day on the books and either hiring somebody to answer your phone and call your leads fast if you're still in the machine, or asking your wife or your girlfriend or whoever to help you out in that. We see a lot of people in this phase doing that exact same thing. But somebody's got to call the leads fast. And then you figure out that step. So you're calling leads fast and you're booking jobs. You're doing estimates 1 day a week. You're working 4 to 5 days a week. Then you hit this constraint, which is I can only sell so many jobs. We're selling like crazy. We're booked 6, 7, 8 weeks out, but I'm still in the machine and I'm the only one who can sell. So at this point is what I'm super interested in sharing right now. If you stuck around for this whole hour, the constraint that you're dealing with is hiring. And we see one of two things at this point. Either guys complain that like, I can't find good help. This is like where most people throw in the towel, because you convince yourself and you listen to everyone else. Excuse me, I shouldn't use everyone. You listen to most other people out there like, there's no more good help. They just don't make them like they used to anymore. It's like, I don't know, like we got a lot of millennials and a lot of Gen Z who are working at our company and they bust their butt every single day. And I'm happy to pay them well. There's great people out there.
There's 20 to 30-year-olds running multi 7-figure land clearing excavation site prep businesses right now. I see them all the time on TikTok and stuff like that. That is the biggest excuse and the biggest load of crap I have ever heard. You just don't know how to hire. But I love that you walked through exactly the same framework that I have, just you worded it slightly different. But there's 3 levers that are going to constrain you. Lead, sales, and talent.
Mm.
You figure out lead and sales, it's going to lead to talent.
Mhm.
That's what you're going to need. And finding them is just marketing. That's all it is. You have to be able to call them out. You have to be able to make your business look like worth working with them. Guess what? We're hiring right now. This is slightly different, but I have more experience hiring operators for land clearing businesses than I do hiring for myself, just so you know. But I'm hiring for myself right now. And I had everyone on my team film a testimonial, and I made a like little collage Facebook ad of them all saying what they liked about working with Rise and what it's like working at Rise. And then I have a talking video of me calling out the ideal person I would like to work for me, who we are, what we stand for, what we're actually going to want to do, and what their next step is. And guess what? We're getting applications multiple times a day from qualified people. I've had another agency owner reach out to me. And that's what y'all are going to find when you run really good campaigns to get operators, is you will end up finding somebody who realizes they are not fit or don't want to have the challenge of business, but they've started a business, they have machines, and they've become pretty good at operating and knowing, the bolts of the business. And you can end up getting a pretty sweet operator that way. Anyways, yes, talent is going to be your next constraint for sure. And then it's going to start over. You're going to have now all of these machines and people that you have to keep busy. So you have this huge capacity now. This is where I see the next really big bottleneck. You have $1 million capacity, but you're doing $500,000 a year. That's when you need the next level of leads and sales. And then eventually you'll book that up and you'll need talent again. And it just goes like that. And the businesses that are super valuable, that sell for a lot of money and create generational wealth, have a system for every piece of that flywheel, because that's what makes you valuable. Because somebody can come in with more money and dump a bunch of money into your business, and it keeps growing because you already have the systems for all three levers.
Love it. Love it. Leads, sales, talent. Leads, sales, talent. Leads, sales, talent. And if you haven't done it before and you're growing a business, join the club. Everyone else goes through it. You have one of two options. You either throw in the towel and make excuses, or two, you go figure it out. And it's very simple. And when you logically look at it that way, I have one of two options in this scenario. First, we identify the discomfort. Something is making me feel uncomfortable. Why? Because I don't know how to do it, or I don't know how to experience, or I don't know the right answer. So then it's one of two options. Either throw in the towel and quit, or keep complaining about it, or two, go figure it out. And the way that you go figure it out is you go find out what other people have done in that phase, and then you replicate the playbook. Leads, sales, talent. Leads, sales, talent. What else you want to add, Jacob, before we wrap up?
I think we hit pretty much of it. I don't know if you wanted to go through Luke's question about the 54 acres there. The first thing that comes to mind for me is I have lots of questions.
Same.
Can't even begin to spit out a number there. Could be lots of questions, but you'd be more qualified to walk through that.
Hey, Luke, are you still on with us? Not sure if he is. Hey, Luke, if you're watching the replay and you want help with this, happy to jump in and answer some questions inside the school group. For those of you listening who are not in the school group yet, we put together a free Kickstarter training specifically for guys 0 to 20K per month. So designed specifically for the starters. If you're starting out, we've given you the free training for how to go generate consistent 20K per month. And it all comes down to just how do I generate leads and how do I go do sales, set some targets, and then execute the playbook, right? And then for guys who are doing 20 to 80K, we do have an accelerator program, which we're right in the middle of a cohort on. And so if you want to learn whenever we are opening up the next cohort, you can go to ownerops.com. That's OWNROPS.com. If you're in the 0 to 20K range and you want a free training for how to get there. It's school.com/ownerops, skool.com/OWNROPS. Luke, if you're still in here and jump over in the school group, happy to answer some of those questions. Oh, here he is. So my first question would be, what type of vegetation are you dealing with?
I think he said that. Solid hedge trees.
Solid hedge trees. Okay. What part of the country?
I'm also curious if that's full clearing. Do the stumps and root balls need to come out? Like if every tree has to go away on 54 acres and the stumps, that's gonna be a good job.
2 cat 275 hedge large. I'm out here in the west, so I'm unclear on exactly what hedge tree is. But here's how I would ask questions. So first, what are your crew day rates? If you have not defined those crew day rates, that's included in the training. Okay, I've got a spreadsheet in there where it walks you through your exact costs. So you first need to understand, how much does it cost me to operate? When I'm sending that one machine and that one operator out, how much does it cost me to operate that machine? And the crew day rate includes your margin. So how much profit margin are you aiming to generate whenever you mobilize a crew out? And if you've got two machines, you need to put your crew day rate together with 2 machines and 2 operators. And you need to understand all the direct costs associated with that. So that's first. Let's get clear on your direct costs. Second, let's get clear on your overhead. After you understand those 2 things, then we need to define the profit margin that you want to aim to hit based on the size of business that you're at. And then at this point, once you've defined your crew day rate, like I said, this spreadsheet is in the school group. So I encourage you to go in there, download it, go through this exercise. Once you define that, you understand one way to estimate projects. The second variable that you need to understand to reliably kick out an estimating range is you need to understand your production rates. So for that vegetation, like I said, I'm unclear on exactly what that vegetation is, but my question for you specifically is, how fast can one machine and one operator move through that vegetation in one day? And if you don't know those answers, that's your job. And I'm sorry, I don't understand exactly what phase of business you are. If you're super experienced and you have that to the T, then this next prompt probably won't apply. But if you're starting out and you're early on, then the goal is to figure those production rates out. And for any guys who are listening and you're quoting a 54-acre job right out the gate, if you're just starting out and you don't know your production rates, if I'm that, it's a red flag for me, right? I'm only going to go bite off a big job once I understand my production rates.
If you know this person really well and you do not have any clue of your production rate, this would be one of those exceptional scenarios where I would be cool with having an honest, open conversation with the person on some kind of day rate. Like, hey, I'll be honest with you, this is so thick, I really do not know how long it's going to take. Let me do a day or so and see how much. I'll charge you $3,000 a day, or if you're 2 machines, you may want to charge $5,000-6,000 a day. Let me see how much I can do, and I'll come back and then we'll get a full scope of the project from there. If you have that kind of relationship, now that you got to be careful, because if you say that to somebody and they're getting other quotes and somebody's more confident, that may cause you to lose it. But looks like hedge trees in Kansas are called orange trees, Osage orange trees. They seem like kind of a giant version of a bush. like they're thick, but they don't go super tall. It seems like they kind of just branch out. And I could definitely see how you couldn't walk through an area where there's a bunch of them.
So here's my encouragement here, and we just went through this in this cohort of Accelerator with several guys. I asked the question earlier this week, what production rates can you produce with that piece of equipment? And then I re-asked the question, what are you 100% confident that you can produce? So what I see a lot of guys doing is like shooting from the hip. Oh, I can do 2 to 2.5 acres. I can do 3 acres. I can do 1 acre, right? And my question for you is, are you 100% confident you can do that? And if you're not, the next step of this phase, if you're in this business and you're early on, I see a lot of guys doing this when they're starting out. You're either working on your property to understand your production rates or go work for a friend, family member. Like this is sort of, if you're getting into the business, you have to understand what your machines can produce. And the only way to do that is to do the jobs. And so Jacob said something important there. Like if that's a friend or family member who owns that, this would be a great opportunity to actually learn your production rates. If it's not, I think you're shooting from the hip and you should likely pass on the job until you understand your production rates. And that's straightforward. That's just straightforward feedback here because, you know, I think guys get excited by the new numbers or the big numbers, right? And you want to go bid it real quick. And if anybody else is listening to this, my encouragement here is understand your production rates. Understand your production rates. What are they? And look, it comes down to tracking. That's all it comes down to.
A really real world example of why it would be so important to have the guts to pass on this if you're not very sure. We have a client right now who just severely underbid a job, and it's almost bankrupting their company right now. They're not making any money. It's costing them money. They're contracted for the job. They have to do it. It's like a municipal job. They can't just like walk out on it. And it's like almost going to destroy their company where it should have and could have been a really good profitable job if they would have priced it right, or if they just would have avoided it, because they have tons of leads and jobs they could be doing, but they're stuck on this one. They could be just rocking and rolling, growing, doing all these jobs, but they chose to do this one, and it's crushing their business. So that's why it's, you know, so important.
One of the best examples I've seen of this, and I'll keep his name private, just out of respect for him, because I haven't asked his permission to share, you know, about him and his results and whatnot. But there's a great example of a gentleman who is operating an excavator and a mulching machine and a mulcher on the excavator. And his focus was solely smaller jobs. He runs ads. He books the jobs. He calls the leads fast. He books them. He executes the playbook. He's booked up 8 to 9 weeks right now. And they're all small jobs. But he started the business back in August and he's got a fast start. He's already on the, you know, $250,000 a year run rate. And the reason being is because I don't know, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't think he had a ton of experience with this before, but he saw an opportunity, I believe, because he needed it on his own property, and he went and got the machine and he did the work on his own property, and then he went and started selling those smaller jobs. And when I asked him his production rates, he had a very clear answer. He knows them to the T. I'd have to go back and relook at it. It's either down to the third of an acre or to the quarter of an acre. But I find that incredibly impressive. And I believe that that guy has earned the right to go bid a larger job. Why? Because he understands his production rates. And he's also earned the right to start kicking out estimate ranges on the phone to pre-qualify people, but only because he has an understanding of his production rates. And so that's my encouragement for anybody listening. Understand your pricing, understand your production rates. And if you don't understand that, that's what you need to be focusing on right now before you start bidding big jobs. Because as Jacob said, we would hate to hear that same example happen to someone else because you simply don't have the experience or know your production rates.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Any other questions in the chat? If not, we'll wrap this one up. If you do have more questions, please feel free to jump back over into the Owner Ops School Group and check that and answer questions each morning whenever we log on. So thanks again for listening to another episode of the Owner Ops Podcast with Jacob Neffendorf, doing these land clearing live stream series where we talk about all things building and growing, land clearing, forestry mulching, fire mitigation businesses, Friday mornings, 7 a.m. Jacob, we going to continue doing these?
100%.
All right, 7 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Central. Mark your calendars, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget, work hard.